right, I'd like to call the, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the September 1st, 2021 regular select board meeting to order. The time is 6:32 p.m. Okay. Right now, we'll take a look at reviewing changes to the agenda, if any. I would like to request to move items up in the agenda when a member of the public appears. For example, I do expect Mr. Tattersall to arrive, so we will move item 9-B7 from Select Board Chair report to scheduled members of the public later on. Is there any other changes to the agenda besides someone say so? Okay, hearing none, we will now open, review, and discuss and vote on the sand bid for the winter 2021-2022 winter season. Do we have a written bid?
I don't have any. You got it through me.
All right, is that the only one we have?
We have dirt.
We have one bid. I'll open it up from A.S. Clark and Sons. I do have a copy of the invitation to bid if anybody wants to review it. Okay. A bid for A.S. Clark and Sons for the town of Brookline for sand bid of for the winter of 21-22. We bid $23 per yard for 3/4 inch winter sand delivered to town yard and mixed with the town supplied salt and piled in the shed. This is for 14 CY loads. What's the CY? Cubic yard loads delivered at the request of the road supervisor. So those are the items that were requested in our winter sand bid. There's also a sample that was brought, also required by the
Just so the board knows, the sand is the same we've used for the last, same vendor, same pit.
okay, same vendor, same pit. Doesn't taste like this. Chocolate.
$2 a yard increase over last year. The vendor went up $1.50 a yard.
You're riding it out.
Our cost, and because of the fuel cost, we figured we had to go up a little bit on our trucking end, so. And $2.
Yeah, I know,
Thank you for explaining it.
Archie does like the darker sand.
I brought enough so that I could stand the walkway at least once.
What do you think, Mark?
You think you could lift that?
Is that the same sand you used 2 years ago? Too?
Yes.
It's the same, it's, yeah.
Let me just take a one minute thing because the senior heaven there would like to have the person who's talking.
I'm sorry, what you need?
We need to have so the person who's talking. Speaker, yeah, okay,
Like that?
so,
David's not talking now.
no, okay, go to the view again,
I did.
full screen. Okay,
Now he's full screen. He's still not
smiling.
now put down,
I would probably go to just gallery. Gallery's best.
okay, that's the one I want, yes, thank you.
Okay, does anybody have any questions or concerns about the sand sample nor the bid that was received? It is $2 more per cubic per yard than last year. The price was raised $1.50 from the vendor and rounded off to $2 with the classification.
The bag was open, I didn't want to fall away.
All right, there are no other bids came in the mail, posted by mail, nothing else came email, not supposed to come email. So I will make a motion that the town of Brookline accept the bid from A.S. Clark and Sons for the winter sand at $23 per yard for 3/4 inch winter sand delivered to the town yard and mixed with town supplied salt and piled in the shed at the request of the road supervisor. May I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Stan Noga. Any further discussion? Anybody have anything to add?
Question,
Yes, sir.
what is it that makes that 3/4 inch sand? It's obviously the pellets are not 3/4 inch.
I took some out of their pile
Uh-huh,
and, you know, when they make it, typically the stones roll to the bottom. I was sitting in my truck waiting for everybody to come and I was looking at it and I said that.
It's a little smaller than 3/4 inch, which is
But
actually
if
a
you
little
look at
better.
your township, it's exactly the same sand we
Okay.
brought last year.
So it's everything from minimal to the largest would be 3/4.
3/4 is the maximum.
Okay,
But, you know, when you get an ice storm or, those pieces are above, they'll grab into the ice, make better traction. When it's packed for the.
Also, it's a dark colored sand, so it draws the sun better.
yeah,
Melts its way quicker as soon as the sunlight gets it.
Any other?
no, thank
Very
you.
good. All right, hearing no other discussion, all those in favor of approving the bid from A.S. Clark and Sons for the winter sand bid for 2021-22, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I heard David, thank you. I'm gonna put the sound up a little bit. All right, the bid has been accepted. Thank you very much. And appreciate working with you again this winter. Hopefully we won't have any snow.
It's the ice will breathe.
Yeah.
Climate change has done some interesting things.
Okay, we'll move along then through the agenda. Review and approve minutes from August 12th. I apologize for not getting this out. This was tabled at the last meeting because I didn't have it done properly. So I did email out to everyone and I gave a hard copy to those who showed up this evening for the draft minutes. Does anybody, has everyone had a chance to take a look at it?
Yes.
David, did you get a chance to take a look at it? I apologize.
Looking at them right now. So,
I had to modify, make sure I had time in there, statements, legal statements.
Cool.
Okay, looks good. All right, since I wrote the minutes, I'm not gonna make my own motion.
Make a motion to accept the minutes as written.
Motion is on the floor to accept the minutes as written. May I have, by Bruce Mello, may I have a second?
Second,
Seconded by Stan, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the draft minutes as presented for Thursday, August 12th, special meeting, 2021, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes will be changed to final, and I will email that later tonight to you for posting. Thank you very much. Okay. August 18th, 2021, regular meeting minutes.
Okay, I'll let you,
Okay,
I wouldn't go back and forth and say.
sure.
You do what you
All right, we're gonna
want.
take a look at the meeting minutes. There are 6 pages. On page 1, anybody have any modifications for the minutes from page 1?
Members of the public, and throughout the whole document, Tom Statz's name needs to be corrected.
Okay, Peter, Tom Stats, his name is spelled S, as in Sam, S-T-A-A-T-S,
As in Sam.
as in Sam. And so.
Okay, you're gonna have to give me the old military thing, because these letters are impossible to distinguish.
Okay, all right, I don't know if I know the old military, but Sam, Peter, Alan, Tom, Frank. No, that's what you gave me, excuse me.
Yeah, that's,
Good, that's good enough. I don't know the military either.
That's, let me write it out. S-T-A-T, is it 2 A's now?
AATS.
ATS.
Sam, Thomas, Alan, Thomas, Sam, okay? S-T-A-A-T-S.
I'm sorry, the last letter is S's in Sam.
Stan.
Is an S as in Stanley.
Oh. So it has two S's, two T's, and two A's.
That is correct, 2 S's, 2 T's, and 2
But not
A's.
together.
It's spelled the same
I-
forwards and backwards.
Oh, yeah, it's spelled the same
A
forward and backwards.
palindrome. Oh my God. I'm so glad we had this little talk.
There's another correction on page one, when you get.
Yes, what else on page 1?
I believe it's a correction. Under unscheduled members of the public, third line, last, third and second word from the end. The meeting house, is that one word or is it 2 words?
We've always put it down as one word rather in all my
That's
things,
what I
so.
recall,
Yep.
so
Sure.
just that one modification additional.
So change the 2-word meeting house to 1 word.
Okay.
I have a question. It is under unscheduled members of the public. It's between paragraph 2 and 3. Let me see. I have an email. Yeah, all right, I'm gonna, never mind. I have no other questions for page 1. Anything else? Page 2 of 6. All line of changes were words from the spelling of Tom's name. Bruce, you have some
Oh,
corrections?
not really.
I do.
Yeah.
When?
In the the paragraph after Miss Maggio acknowledged, it says Mr. Stats suggested.
Yeah.
It says in the third sentence down that the grant had not. So I think it's supposed to be the grant had not been approved. Not was had not. The
Kind of
grant
thing.
had not been approved.
Corrected.
And then in from there, 1, 2, 3, the 4th paragraph down, where it says Miss Maggio confirmed Mr. Stats' account, it says the roads were being maintained as possible. I think it should be were being maintained as good as possible or something, I'm not sure, I wasn't there. But that just doesn't sound right.
Okay, so as good as possible. Anything else
No,
on
that's,
page?
no, sorry, that's unacceptable English, but I will correct it.
I knew you would do that.
Stan?
Yeah, second paragraph, second line, the word
Wrong
T,
page.
you were asking for corrections on page 2, correct?
Correct.
That's
Oh, I opened this one.
206. Where it says appropriate with a $5,000 in effect at the, you got tie, I think you meant to put the word time, T-I-M-E instead of T-I-E.
Got it.
Also, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. 5th paragraph, if you call the first line one-liner a paragraph. I'm not sure what's being said. It said Mr. Stats introduced himself, a resident for 4 years.
40.
Yeah, it's 40 years. Let's see.
And I know David raised his hand, he'd like to make a comment when
Okay.
you're done, Stan.
And then the last paragraph, I'm not sure what's being expressed there. The Whitney, with Whitney Road, and then the next line down, we have Whitney Hill. I think it was meant to be Whitney Hill in every case of those 2 cases where it's mentioned. So instead of Whitney Road on line 1, it should be Whitney Hill.
Okay,
And one other, it's what's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9th paragraph down, the 3rd line, 4th word from the end. And you have there that the grant has not been approved. I think what should have been there, I'm not sure what was said, but what would make sense in the scope of of the situation, or the extent was, that word should have been scope of work. The scope of work had not been approved until June 28th. And that's because the grant had been approved 10 or 12 years earlier. So the grant was approved, they were just waiting for the scope of work to be provided to them in order to okay the scope, the contractors, et cetera.
Let the record show.
Okay,
David, did you want to say something? You had your hand up?
Yeah, Stan got most of the things that I had noted, but in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7th paragraph down, it begins, there was discussion, the paragraph. About the 4th line, there's a expression that the board had been in different hands when discussing scope of work. That I think whatever was said was, I guess I'm not sure, quite frankly, what was said, because that the scope of work has all been handled during the same select board term. So I'm not
I don't have
exactly
that in front of
sure.
me, but is that sentence necessary?
It's not necessary. Yeah, I think you could just
I'll
strike
strike it.
that whole clause that the board had been in different hands when discussing scope of work. Yeah, exactly. I would just take that. And then the only other thing I had at the very last paragraph on that page, the end of the 3rd line, that he had installed some fabric under the road. I think what Mark had said is that we had discussed the possibility of installing fabric. I just want to make sure we don't lead people to believe that we have installed any fabric under the road on Whitney Hill, because we haven't. So you could just change that to, we've considered installing some fabric under the road, something like that.
Yeah, that he had discussed, sure.
Yeah, sure, exactly. Thank you. That's it.
All right, thank you. Any other items on page 2 of 6? Page 3 of 6?
yeah,
Stan?
yeah, last paragraph last paragraph on the page under old business around schoolhouse. The date that I believe was stated for completion was August 1st and not August 18th. We had been instructed by the Preservation Trust to have work done by the 1st of August.
Okay,
I have an item under new business. It's the sentence that starts off with, Mr. Bills added that the town must rent the needed equipment. Mr. Bills added that the town must rent. Just strike the word does, DOES.
okay.
Anything else, Bruce?
Yes, under the heading of the sand bid, at the end of the explanation of the sand bid, Peter, it says the statement with Ms. Maggio read the above RFP. At the very last part of that sentence, it says listserv SRV.
That's how it's.
That's what it's supposed to be spelled?
Mm-hmm.
That's ERV, service.
Oh, all right. That's.
And
Mr. Mello is too young to remember that ancient technology.
Is that a compliment?
at the very bottom of that page where Stan was talking about, at the very last sentence, it says, Mr. Mello confirmed that the contract fulfilled as it was originally written. I don't remember saying that, but I did say Mr. Mello discussed this confusion happening twice.
Oh, I think I know what, if I can offer a comment. In reading this, if I hadn't attended the meeting, I wouldn't know what some of these partial sentences are really intimating. I mean, it's a way, it's good for us, but it might not be fair to our citizens in trying to get wind of this. I believe what that last sentence is that when we were talking about the fact that we had learned that the Historic Society or Historic Commission, whichever it is, talked with the vendor about the windows. The vendor told me that he was told by one of the Historic Commission members that they wanted only the outside of the windows done, not the interior of the windows done. And I believe Bruce was indicating that a similar situation had happened on the daycare center.
Correct.
Where the same vendor
Right.
made a comment about only the exterior was to be
Correct.
done. And that had to be discussed at the time with the vendor. So I believe that's one of these partial sentences that it got across something that was said, but in a way that makes it undetectable to even the person who might have said it. Nothing meant malice or intended, it's just, that's the way things need to go. I guess, to put all this down in one place.
Let's take it out and shoot it until it's dead. I want you to know I'm really gratified that this select board actually reads these things. This is actually quite unusual. And you are all to be commended. You're all to be commended for your assiduity in the conduct of your.
Assiduity? Wait a minute, what was that, assiduity?
Let's go, we gotta go.
Okay, sorry.
Include that in your
Assiduousness.
minutes, we'll have to explain.
Assiduousness.
Anything else on the page?
Detail.
No.
Page 4.
Yes,
All right, Stan?
under reports, second paragraph, it says Mr. Noga suggested. And I believe I advised, I didn't suggest. Cause I wasn't suggesting that there was a survey done, we did a survey. And we did review pays, benefits, et cetera, of other towns, so I would just change that word from suggested to advised.
And so mote it be.
Not is, but was done. Yeah, that's the only word, advised, that, oh, yes, I'm sorry. Good catch, Glenn. Ms. Noga advised that a survey of town employees was done, would be the proper way of expressing that sentence, so.
Got it.
Thank you.
I have one item. Down under car, tree and timber, quote for 1 day's work. It said Ms. Maggio suggested inviting Carr to a regular meeting in October. That was not for cars, tree and timber, that was for SEVED. That would be, let's strike that sentence. I didn't invite them.
Back.
Anything else?
Yep.
Bruce?
Reports, under town clerk report, Guy Kanza, last sentence. Mr. Kanza anticipated meeting the second week in September, which I'm probably waiting for, with the Board of Civil Authority.
Yes.
Well, sometimes he says Board of Authority when he means that.
Okay. Blame him, I don't know.
Anything else on page 4? 5 or 6? Hearing none. I'm on page 6 of 6. Hearing none. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes from Wednesday, August 18th, 2021, regular select board meeting as amended. May I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Stan Noga. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes from August 18th as amended, signify by saying aye.
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 I abstain.
Any opposed?
I abstain.
1 abstention. Gwen Tanza abstained. She was not present. Thank you very much. It's in here, and then we will, I noticed while we were going over the minutes, Mr. Tattersall arrived and Dan Trowler is online. Dan, I'll get to you in a moment. We're going to entertain, we moved up the agenda for item 9B7 from reports. It's an update on Mr. and Mrs. Tattersall's flood mitigation concerns. If you remember at the last meeting, Marie and Chuck had flooded out quite severely at the July 29th rainstorm here in Brookline, and Archie Clark and the Tattersalls and Mark walked the property and determined that there needs to be some additional drainage, levering, moving materials around in that area, and the cost would be approximately $2,000. We were talking briefly about the expense and where the flooding is. And so Chuck is here this evening, and I explained to Mark that I got an email from Marie and talked to her on the phone tonight about the town usually does not go on personal property as a town road to repair things. However, we do use A.S. Clark and Sons. In fact, we have part of the team right here this evening that we can talk a little bit about. So from what I understand, there are 3 property owners that are involved in that approximately 120-yard area or 200-yard area where it needs to be repaired. And that would be Priscilla Bush Bell, Stuart Duke, and your property. Stuart lives at in the Bush log cabin. He just moved in this year. Correct.
Okay, isn't there also the Brookline Woodlands LLC? I think they're involved there too.
Oh, is that the LLC that Priscilla developed with? No, it's another entity.
That's the person who lives up on Putney Mountain.
All right, so I'll have to get a lister to help me with that. So, all right, I'll give you a few minutes if you'd like to talk to the select board.
I was just wondering what the status was, and part of that was, or if anybody had contacted, and I believe the tax name I think is Brookline Woodlands LLC, which I understand is a doctor who lives up on the top of the mountain. And it's quite a large piece of that. His property comes out to the road in a fairly narrow area, and involved in that is like the right of way that Priscilla Bush Bell has over that property. And I think it was determined that the name you mentioned of the Maynard Bush's house, part of that is involved. And we're involved in that also. I also believe that Priscilla has deeded that property over to her son. But she still wants to be involved in negotiating because, according to her, he's too busy and lives in another state. Well, she does too. So anyway, I'm just here to see how we're set. It was also mentioned there was a time constraint on this involved with the
October 1st.
Yeah.
We need to be out of all streams by October 1st, and I don't see any reason why that probably would be able to get this done. Mark, do you want to share anything right now? What I will do is, now that I didn't realize there was the Brookline Woodlands LLC, I'm gonna have to do a little research and contact them, but I can draft up a letter requesting permission for this work to be done, noting that there is some discretion will be on their property in order to do it. And if they have questions, I'm gonna ask them to talk with Mark maybe, because Mark, you know how much land will be, I don't want to say trespassed on, but passed on.
Yeah, it's really a small amount, but it's because of the problem starts
Right,
over the boundaries, and without fixing that first, it's kind of senseless to go on with the rest. So the two adjoining properties come down where the water starts to form a stream, and it's pushed sediment filling in the stream bed so that it just spreads out, causing water flow to go around the wrong side of Mrs. Tattersall's house. So there needs to be a correction outside of Tattersall's property.
and that section that you're talking about also heads directly towards the water.
One problem after another.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Because-
because it's filled up, it's going the exact opposite direction that it should flow.
yeah, it's going both ways instead of one way, it's going both ways. And also, I've worked my way down the stream, and I got down to the upstream side of the culvert that's due to be replaced. And there's a lot of down trees and things in there. And hopefully it won't be affected tonight,
Yeah.
but that's something that needs to be cleaned up. I think before they do the work, because I say I worked my way down there and it's substantially blocked.
Okay, is it like alder size, alder?
Yeah, maximum 4 inches. But it's just stuff that's fallen in and some willows have taken root in the stream.
Right.
And it's within a 4 or 5 feet of the actual opening of the culvert.
Well, what I can do for you tomorrow, since it's gonna be a rainy day, I will make my contacts to the landowners, either by phone call, any follow up with a written letter, CCing you all and letting Mark and Archie know, and then okay, when permission has been received, and then you guys can contract with AS Clark and do what you need to have done there. That would be
Okay,
like best I could help you with. All right?
sounds good.
Yeah, we certainly hope you don't have any problems. Yes, Mark?
Stands for.
Stan?
Just a quick question, is this something that historically has been a problem all along, or is this a more recent development?
This is a more recent development. We've been there approximately 30 years in that house. And this is the second time that something has happened. It happened at Christmas time, but that was partially a snow thing and a rain thing. No, I think what happened was it started in Irene. And as Mark mentioned, right where the stream takes a turn, it started to erode that bank. And it's just gotten progressively, each storm has taken a little more, till at the point now, that bank is practically gone. Well, say prior to that, we've been there for 30 years and it hasn't been an issue.
So if the corrective action is taken on that, would there be a need for enlarging the culvert or rearranging anything at the road site?
Well, at the road site, I believe the state has done a hydraulic study, so they take into consideration all of the water that sheds down to this point, and that's how they determine what size diameter culvert or structure to put under the road. So it's kind of out of our hands.
Okay.
They go watershed, the entire, I don't know how many acres they're looking at, but from the top of the mountain to the roadway.
So that becomes the town's responsibility at that point?
Yes.
Are there other places around town that same scenario is developing?
Yeah, I mean, any culvert under our class 2 highways are, I don't know. The state, has state standards that we have to abide by. So anytime there's a fail, it is usually replaced with a larger diameter, fix for future, floodwaters.
So this is a dual thing, it's gonna be fixed at the source of the problem, but then we have to also, because of the
Well,
way the structure is, we still have to do something near the road,
We have a list.
leaving the town.
We have a list of infrastructures that are due to be upgraded. And because of the cost, a lot of these, anything over 36-inch diameter requires the state's, advice. And so anything 3 foot and bigger is studied by the state, and we have to go by their specs. Now, the culvert by Mr. Tattersall's going under the road, the big one, that takes this water flow we're speaking of tonight. That one has already been, taken care of. The plans are made, we just have to wait for, the grant for us to qualify for the grant.
I think it's 2 years out from what I read, that we're 2 years out on that culvert upgrade
See,
from the state. They roll, they have a certain schedule.
because we got assistance on the last box culvert, which was done just south of Papoose Lane area bridge. We have to wait our turn to get funding for this next stretch. And I guess it's 2 years more for that. However, if there's a fail, if the road breaks apart or there's anything that causes this damage, there is an emergency granting available to fix that. I just wanted to say to Mr. Tattersall that as far as the town's involvement for you, we definitely want you to have it fixed, but for the highway department, we have to work within the town right of way. And the roads, the center of the road out 25 feet is the right of way. And so I try to maintain the brush and the ditches and the culverts that are within a 50-foot range. So I can't really go beyond that legally to, I'll do whatever I can out there, and then, if any way there is that we can give you help.
Thank you for explaining that.
Yeah, and that's the same on gravel roads and paved roads. On some of the narrower roads, like class 4, it's like 16 feet, but the major 2-lane highways is 25 feet from the middle of the road, the yellow line out. And so we have the to keep safety for, brush growing into the road, trees falling into the road, flood culverts, we have that right.
So what we'll do again, I'll keep in touch with you all, and I will work on this tomorrow. So we should have some kind of, hopefully some, at least verbal agreement, and then have a written agreement in the mail shortly thereafter.
Okay,
Well, thank you so much for coming.
thank you,
and
thank you for your time.
Well, we're gonna do a sunshine dance outside, so you don't get all the stuff from me.
So are you all set for tonight if you get
Yeah.
some rain?
Yeah.
They've upped it from 2 to 3 inches.
Hopefully it's being spread out,
Yeah.
not all in 1 hour.
Good luck.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
thank
like I said, I worked with the downs, so that will flow now,
Okay, that's good.
but it still has the potential where the tank is going, of heading out,
Sure. Okay.
we're in as good a shape as we can.
Yeah, well, hopefully, we get the same amount of rain as Henry threatened us with.
Right,
you lucked out on that.
Yeah, we got lucky, that storm kind of fizzled out,
yes.
faded away.
All right, well, thank you again for giving us help.
Say hi to Marie.
Hello?
Hi, Dan, you can unmute yourself, I had some background noise, so I muted everybody. So if you wanted to, there you go. Dan, what can we help you with? We modified the agenda to address anybody who comes to our meetings, what can we help you with, Dan?
I'm just here to observe, really. I didn't come with any agenda.
Okay,
I was interested in a couple of things that were going to be talked about, so that's about it.
all right, so I'm gonna, you can mute yourself, but you can always raise your hand or unmute yourself if you'd like to contribute later on when we go through anything, okay?
Okay, thank you very much, Dot.
You're welcome. All right, we're gonna move on then through any other scheduled members of the public or unscheduled, other than Dan Trowler. We're gonna move on to new business. The American Rescue Plan.
Wayne Clark just raised his hand.
Oh, Wynn, yes, sir.
Rescuing cat on. for-
Oh, rescuing, go ahead. Go ahead.
You should have gotten a letter, or you're gonna be soon, about the consortium, you know, the town, rescuing town thing. Every year we do it. This year is very important for somebody to be there.
I signed up already,
That's good.
yes.
'Cause we
And
got
I'm thinking
something.
Jordan will also come.
Yeah,
Has she been
Yeah,
attending meetings?
she wasn't at last night's meeting and I just thought, well, I'm here, we have a couple things that I can't really say right now, but that
Okay.
are very important to the future. So-
Sorry, I didn't get the heading for this. What was the important meeting?
Wynn is a member of Rescue Inc. and there is a town informational meeting being held in Brattleboro on emergency medical coverages for the town of Brookline and the contract terms and rates. And the meeting is on Thursday, September 16th at 6:30 PM on Canal Street. And I've already signed up to attend the meeting for the select board. And we also have a representative, Jordan, who I'm assuming will also attend. So that's what it's about. It is on the agenda for later on, under select board reports. But it's fine since you're here, Wynn, that we double check that. All right, very good.
Thank you.
Do you feel anybody else from the board should go, or do you feel comfortable being the representative of Jordan?
Thank
You're
you.
welcome
Get you
to
a
come.
letter tomorrow.
If you would
Yeah.
like, there's also
Take care, Wayne.
an email that you can register.
I got it,
You have it?
I just held back from actually registering until we talked about
Sure, if you'd like to come, we can carpool, we got to pick you up.
it.
You wanna come too?
Your trunk's that big?
All right, very good, so we might have two people going there, or three. All right, we're gonna move on to the American Rescue Plan Act discussion. I just wanted to let the community know, the select board's been very busy, we've had emergency meetings, regular meetings, special meetings, and training meetings, workshops, and we met last week with Katie Buckley, who's the director of the ARPA Assistance and Coordination Program up in Montpelier, and Chris Campy. He came and we had a little, I guess it was almost 2 hours? Hour and a half, discussion about the funding that Brookline is entitled to. We have already received 50% of the state funding, and we expect later on to be getting 50% of the county funding. The rest of the money will be coming next August. The rest of the money will be coming next August. So
So just so I understand that, the half of the state
it's here.
budget has been received,
Mhm.
and
Half of
the
the-
county monies that was originally for counties, that's now being divvied up to the towns, it's gonna be received in the next 30 days.
Yes,
Half of that amount, and then
Correct.
next year, about a year, we'll get the two payments again, one
correct.
after the other, okay.
Correct. We learned that the cities can use the ARP funds to support public health expenditures, address negative economic impacts caused by the public health emergency, replace lost public sector revenue, provide preliminary premium pay for essential workers, and investing in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. Our concern is to make sure that we get the most bang for our buck, because any money that we don't spend, we'll need to return to the state, or we can donate it to other other agencies such as the hospitals or schools, that they could use the money in collaboration of improving, living conditions. We do often get, webinars, and currently there is a municipal budgeting and finance webinar, September 15th, 9:30 in the morning to 12:15, which will be legal requirements and best practices and an ARPA update. I'm not going to be able to attend this webinar because I'm gonna be at another one the same day, but it is a good idea if anybody has time to, if you see these emails that Guy sends out or I send out that says for your reference or information, if you'd like to sign up. And this is a cost to it, but we are a PACIF member, so it's not the full $78, $48 for attending. Is anybody interested at this time or later on, you can sign up.
I'd be willing to give it a whirl. Was that the letter that came out from Guy that maybe has
Yes.
the 15th, 16th, instead of 3 days?
No, that's
No,
the one
that's-
I'm gonna attend, that's the
Ah.
emergency management
Okay.
one.
Okay.
This is, it's called budgeting, municipal budgeting and finance, and.
Okay.
I did email everybody that, I
Yes.
believe.
Okay, I will look it up and I will
Yep.
attend.
Does anybody else wanna share anything from the meeting that we had with them last week?
Because I think the town has
Could I have the date again?
The date of this webinar is
Yeah.
Wednesday, September 15th, 9:30 AM to 12:15 PM. It's legal parameters for budgeting, spending, and borrowing. So it will give us a lot of information, especially since we might be looking at purchasing equipment and we may need to borrow equipment, so it'll help us understand that as well. So Stan said he's interested in it, and we certainly will support, we have a training line item to cover these expenses. Does anybody like to share anything else before we move on about their experience or concerns about ARPA? We all need to be thinking about wish lists and reading as we can, as things come out, and things are sort of raw right now, it's just very new and we're not completely sure, but just start thinking about ways in which we can,
That's the problem.
yeah, it's that we.
It's a major problem because I went leaving the meeting, I love Chris Campbell and Katie, they were great. And I love the discussion, and I was like, feel all positive, I said, well, we got these restrictions, how are we gonna do this? We have a lot of needs, and I start seeing that a lot of, no, maybe not my percentage, or over 90% of the needs that we have are not gonna be covered by this. So I guess.
Workaround, you can work
Well,
around.
we talked about that at that meeting, and yeah, so we could stuff the road budget and push it over to the other way, so,
They're always,
yeah, so I'm a little green about exactly.
within the legal realms.
I think that if anyone in the community is probably gonna get a feel for it, it's probably appropriate to say that the guidelines are so unset or unprecise that they're urging municipalities to wait until they issue more specific guidelines. The problem is they haven't defined or told us exactly when those specific guidelines are coming. And some of the questions that we asked in behalf of the town's people were specific things that came to our mind. And there were some things that were not able to be funded. There were other things that we could. And Guy mentioned the term
Workaround.
workaround. Well, there are ways of getting funds for projects that are valid projects, so it appears on the surface, without the specific guidelines being issued, that there's optimism that we probably can use as much money as we can of the total. And one of the things that once those, I think, guidelines get firmed up and are more instructive and helpful, is to get some feedback, which we all feel we're gonna do at some point, from the townspeople in terms of either a meeting in conjunction possibly with other towns put on by the Wyndham Regional Commission or possibly by VLCT, or we could do it individually, but to be efficient, it might sound, we've not really decided what we're gonna do, how we're gonna do it, but there is further information possible, and the citizens probably at some point will be asked, I suspect, At least that's my
To the
feeling,
survey, yeah.
to give their input. So, it's a little bit premature right now, other than speculation on what we could do with the money and creating a wish list. So I think that might be what Dan is partly interested in on this, in light of the rounds, the meeting house, et cetera, those kinds of things. So hopefully that's helpful.
Go ahead,
Bruce?
I think a good person to tap is Tom Cavett. I think it would be an advantageous thing to invite Tom to some of these meetings
That's
because he's got a real good handle on the state's economy and so forth and what's going on. So,
Well, obviously the planning commission should be a part of this, and I would
Yeah.
assume that when we get to that point, and I don't wanna speak for anybody, but I just assume that those individuals that play that role in our community ought to be a part of that discussion.
yes.
Absolutely.
Bruce?
Two things. First, what I noticed when I went over, I had a nice conversation with Katie Buckley, and I really liked both of them. And I think two things surfaced, and it was repeated the second time, because I repeated it the second time to Katie. And that was, she said, be patient. Chris, make up your wish list. Chris, consult us. We can work through the quagmires of the insecurity of not knowing what to do. Or I guess what I'm trying to say is, he can work around the legalities of it to make sure that we're doing it right and that we're getting to use the money for what we want to use it for. But Katie was quite emphatic. She said it twice or three times. Get your money, let it sit. We have until 2024 to earmark it and 2026 to spend it. So we have a considerable amount of time. I guess what she's trying to say, don't be in a rush. Just get your scene together, get your wish list together, get some public, have a meeting, whatever you want to do. Get your act together. And probably a little chance that we can actually move or use the money until next fiscal budget in light of what Guy was saying, because this year's budget's done. So we probably couldn't really, I don't want to use the word finagle, move things around to keep them legal until after July 1st.
All right, David, you have something you'd like to say?
Yeah, one thing that we could be doing, I think at this point, if I'm understanding it correctly, is we could be, and maybe this is something that either Samara might be able to fairly easily do for us, or we could do it, or we might be able to get Tom to help us. I mean, we could be calculating our lost revenue as a municipality based on the advice that they've given and the calculations that the Treasury determined. That's something that by all indications is done, and we could do the projected growth calculation from the current fiscal year to last fiscal year and determine what our loss was, assuming there was one, or what our lost revenue was. And that is money that we absolutely can take and use as a municipality, I think, in any way we choose. So that might be something we should start with, because we could at least have an idea and potentially some confidence of being able to use some of the money sooner than later.
Thank you.
And maybe that's something Wyndham, we would still run it by Wyndham Regional and make sure we've gone about it the right way. But I mean, I think that's something we should consider doing.
Yeah, I believe Katie and or Chris Campy referenced that, and they indicated there was formulas for that kind of thing that we would be applying to make that determination.
Yeah, there's a calculate. There
Yeah.
appears to be, based on the slides that that Dot sent out summarizing your discussion. There is a Excel calculator that the Treasury Department developed and has shared out that we can plug in the appropriate numbers and determine what our lost revenue was.
Excellent ideas.
Yeah.
All right, good idea. Anybody else? So this is the beginning of a process of understanding budgeting and losses and community needs, and we will we do our fiduciary responsibility to the best that we can. So that's our job. Bruce?
Do you feel that we should put in the minutes the amounts that were in?
Sure. I don't have the numbers with me now.
I have them, if you'd
All
like
right,
them.
Peter, we're gonna recite to you the amounts that Brookline is entitled to from the two fundings, formulas. Stan, go ahead.
Yeah, state municipal dollar amount is $55,484.51. And we've received half of that, the $27,742.25 already. The county amount, because Vermont is, I guess, the only state in the country that doesn't have a more developed county administrative process, everything is done by the municipalities. The money that's coming from that particular funding is $102,953.61. And of that, we're supposed to get in 30 days, half of that, $51,476.80. The total of monies that we will be getting over the next roughly 14 months would be $158,438.12.
Thank you, Stan, for having those numbers handy.
Yeah, really.
Just checking, an amount of 55,484.51.
Well, you got it, Peter, right on.
Thank you.
Yep.
Welcome.
All right, next we're gonna move, any other things for ARPA? I think everybody's in the room that wants to be here. All right, next we have on our agenda, the Historical Society and Round Schoolhouse. I brought with me, in case anyone wanted to discuss or review letters and exchanges from and emails in June 16th, a letter I sent out on July 27th, an email I sent out on August 25th, and another email sent out on August 30th, asking the Brookline Historical Committee to respond or answer some questions, and have the only contact I've had is with Cynthia now, and I did spend some time yesterday afternoon with her in her living room, talking about it. So I'm gonna just follow my agenda here. Item number 1 under Historical Society around Schoolhouse, following the purchase policy for bids. The town does have a established purchase policy, and the bids over $1,000 really should be advertised and made advertised in a way either through listservs or written forms of adverts so that we know who was approached. And we need to have 2 or 3 different people that provide bids for expenditures close to that $5,000 mark that we had. Second item on my agenda here, community support for the historical buildings in town. I'm very pleased to be working with the Brookline Meeting House Committee. It's a very active committee. We have Dan is on it, who's a member. I know Stan and Bruce, you've also worked with them as well, and Leanne is doing a terrific job in keeping the program running and providing agendas, and Dan does the minutes, and I think that we have a good face to the community for this program. As seen with a little request for a wet dry vac, and we got not only a new wet shop vac to the meeting house, but several hundreds of dollars of donations. Thank you for the meeting house. So we do support our historical buildings in town. I don't want anyone to think that we are trying to slow down any progress. There is a concern to revise, we brought it up at the last meeting 2 weeks ago, about revising the way the current committee or committees currently exist. Right now we have before 2014, we just had the historic Round Schoolhouse as our historic building here in town. And well maintained, and a grant was processed to do a lot of repairs, and 2006, and we just finished up the last $5,000 of that grant that's supposed to be 10 years old. There's a concern about whether or not the current committee members can be as active as they even hope to or want to be. I know Joseph Dutton, who was on the select board last year, did send an email to me saying that he's not gonna be able to attend some meetings, doesn't see that as a problem, as Stan is the one who has done all the heavy lifting at this point, and that he's staying in touch and he really appreciates your work. So we've asked the committee to respond to a certain number of concerns that we have, and we really haven't had that. So we were gonna talk tonight about whether or not we have two committees, or now we have another historical building, so should the Historic Society be two buildings or keep them separate, or I don't know, we need to discuss this a little bit. We don't have to make any decisions tonight. But anybody wanna start?
I know how I
Bruce?
feel, I thought it should have been together, but I don't understand, was on the committee with me at the time when we went through this. And there was a vote taken not to do the two together. I prefer to have it
Can
together.
I ask you who did? You have to remember to talk to the camera, because that's where the mic is. And who voted, the select board or the committees? Okay, go ahead.
The covenant team.
The committee, okay.
The church committee.
But we've already talked about why that didn't happen and the reasons for it in the past.
Yeah, I'm sure we did, but that was like 4 or 5 years ago. That was quite a while ago.
Right, that why it was appropriate then to not do that.
Probably, yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
good point.
But I mean, you were there, I was there,
Yeah,
and we all felt the same about the condition of
I think we all agreed at a certain point, probably because there was a consensus to do it together. Do I have that right?
well, what do you mean by
I'm
together?
confused.
I
I mean,
mean,
the two committees together as one.
I thought that we would have liked to have done it, I think if I can, let me express what I recall. I believe we thought that it would be a good idea to be one committee. However, at the time, this grant, whether it was 25,000 initially, but there was this $5,000 hanging out there. And we didn't wanna look like we were infringing on the Round Schoolhouse Committee or the Historic Committee to look like we were trying to take it over, cause our numbers were bigger. And we didn't know what arrangements they had, we didn't know the parameters of the grant, we didn't know anything about that, so we thought that at the time, because it looked like the Historical Commission was gonna bring the $5,000 to a close in the near future. I mean, Doug was here, Mrs. Now was here, the select board asked them about it, and they said they would be getting on it and things were gonna get done. So we basically held off, just letting it ride as it was, two separate committees. So that was the reason why it didn't happen. I think the consensus of the Meeting House Committee at that time, as Bruce has stated, was that if we could join, that would be a good thing. Because right now you got two boards competing for whatever monies are available. And maybe one board's not gonna pay attention to what the other is, and they only have so much money to give around, and I would suspect they're looking at the town as a whole. What have we done for Brookline, and what have we done for Rutland, what have we done? So I don't think there's an advantage priority-wise having two separate committees in the town. I think that's kind of what we were feeling at the time.
All right, well, that's good, the historical.
I don't know, I don't see as how we can do it until we get more people, and that's a whole nother issue. But with just the active people that are on now, although now, hopefully, we're gonna get into this discussion pretty shortly, it's number 4. Once we get the Round Schoolhouse locked up, which stands in incredible amount of work, we'll take the last again, and hopefully, I'll get into that afterwards, I don't wanna get into that because I'm not lying. But once we have that under control, there's not gonna be that much to do with that school, Round Schoolhouse, other than having the guy clean all the time.
Right.
So, I think from the standpoint of what Stan was talking about, putting the entities together, doesn't make a damn difference to the state, but it could make a difference to us in the long run, just to how we apply for grants and stuff like that, so. I'm thinking, I'd like to see it combined, that's my personal.
one other thing, and I have mentioned this before, and I don't mean monopolize the time, but regarding existing current historical society members, at the time that I met with Mr. Dutton to go over the scope of work as he presented it to the vendors or as they had presented to the vendors, Joe Dutton had said to me back in early June or late May that he had intended to withdraw from the Brown Schoolhouse Committee. The only reason he was still involved at the time he was talking to me is because he became aware of that $5,000 hanging out there. And he felt he wanted to be involved in getting that money utilized by the town. And so he then followed up as we were ready to go our separate ways after having talked for about 45 minutes or so, saying that oh, by the way, Stan, if you could tell the board, I probably am not gonna be able to make it to the next meetings because this is a busy time of the year for him. So there were two messages I got. A, he didn't want to really continue on the thing, and B, he was telling me for his involvement then that he wasn't gonna be there. And he thanked us, the board, for our willingness to assist them in bringing this to a close. So that's the status on Mr. Dunn.
Okay, the city. Okay, because that leaves us to basically one member. I don't mean to minimize Cynthia, but she's not capable of really being direct. I won't speak for her, but I go back to my original statement, thinking that we need more people on the committee to do other things that I hope to make a presentation for in the next couple of months, which I'm not prepared to do right now.
Gwen, do you have anything you'd like to share? I have something if not.
No.
David, do you have anything you'd like to share?
No, I mean, I guess the main thing I'd say is, you know, I know at the moment we're talking about the Historical Society not having a lot of active members and struggling a bit to keep things moving, and that's certainly been the case. I will just remind people, a few years ago, we were having the same conversation about the Meeting House Committee, and Leanne was coming to our meetings begging to try to find other people who were interested in being involved in doing things. Some of this stuff is probably a bit cyclical depending on what's going on with the buildings and what people are available in town or not available in town. But I mean, you know, as we discussed, and I brought it up when we brought it to the board a couple of years ago, I'm in favor of combining them if it's agreeable to the people that are on each of the committees and we can structure it in a way that makes sense for people. But we also need to get more people to be involved in it in general. That, you know, combining the committees doesn't solve our problem of not having enough people involved. It simplifies it a little bit, I guess, because it would only be one committee, but it doesn't solve that problem.
Right.
That's all.
Guy?
Well, while you're talking about the historical committee and the Meeting House Committee, I just wanted to bring my thoughts that last select board meeting, the select board took a pretty hard hit for not sending out notices for different vendors. And I just wanted to point out that in our purchase policy, in the applications, it states that the town shall apply to purchases of goods and services by town of Brookline, except where conditions of state or federal funds or conditions of a grant, gift, or bequest mandate otherwise. So the town was under a great deal of pressure to expend the $5,000. I understand by all means the concerns of the vendors, but I wanted to let my feelings be known that I think the select board has done a good job and it was a tough call, but the town isn't totally at fault.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you, thank you.
I would just like to add that I was thinking that maybe for clarification, we have two committees. We have the Brookline Meeting House and we have the Round Schoolhouse. Because to say the Brookline Historical Society, and we have two historical buildings now, doesn't make sense. So either we have the Brookline Historical Society for both buildings, or we have two committees. we have a meeting house, and we have a round schoolhouse committee, just to clarify it a little bit easier. And then, well, the funds associated with each going with them, just a change of name initially, and then a reinvigoration of who wants to be on this committee, where we have some projects we can do. So, while we're not going to solve anything this evening, I'm glad we had a chance to talk. I would like to put on the agenda for the next meeting a motion to discuss changing the name from the Historical Society to the Round Schoolhouse Committee, just so that we have a clarification.
That's a start, sure.
And that as a start. And then, if that is amicable, then we will reach out to the individuals that are currently or have been active in the committees to see if we can get some more people, or to see if there's anything that can be combined together.
How come the round schoolhouse and the church can't be combined?
Well, it can
Because
be.
they're.
Well, it depends upon the members. I mean, Dan, you're there. Can you unmute yourself for a second?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, what do you think? You're listening in on the conversation. Do you understand where we're coming from as far as you have two historical buildings, but one is called the Meeting House Committee and the other is called the Historical Society, and I just think it's not clear anymore.
They're both historical.
I don't know, what do you think?
Well, I completely agree with what you're saying about the Historical Society being inappropriately named. And if there is a historical society, so-called, or historical commission, it should be, include both buildings in its purview. But I can't obviously speak for the Meeting House Committee at present because we haven't spoken about this or discussed it. And furthermore, I'm not acquainted with the active members, such as they are, of the Historical Society, and I don't know how they feel about combining forces, so to speak, with the Meeting House group. But I think it's all worth discussing. We're a small town. We have two landmark, nationally recognized landmarks that need to be maintained. And it seems logical that one committee could potentially oversee both. But if it's better to have them separate, then fine. But I think it's definitely worth discussing further.
Yeah, the Brookline Meeting House has its next scheduled meeting on September 14th, which is the day before the next select board meeting. I'll write to Leanne and ask her if we could put that on our agenda for a little bit of discussion and maybe move this to the October meeting so that we have a little bit more time. And after that, then I'll have more time to reach out to the communities and both current committee members to get them involved, to give them the opportunity for involvement. So maybe that's where we're at right now. We will, if it's all right with everyone here, if I can get everybody to concur, that we will put on the October 6th agenda this discussion about the combining or renaming of our historical building committees for future discussion. Is that satisfactory for everybody? Okay, so that would be for October.
Dot, can I just ask one additional thing?
Yes.
I guess, and this might be a question the easiest thing might be to ask Cynthia this question, if you can talk to Cynthia about it. I guess I wonder, is there anything else in the purview of the Historical Society in the past other than maintaining the round schoolhouse?
Yeah, good question.
Oh, yes.
I don't know. I mean, that's all I know about the Historical Society, but that doesn't mean that's all there was ever intended to be about the Historical Society. So a little bit of finding out some detail if we can might just help inform the discussion.
Okay, well, very good, that's a very good point, and while we're all here, I'd like to mention that this Saturday, the first Saturday of every month on September 4th, between 10 and 1, the Brookline Meeting House is having their open house. We're, with this, I'm gonna ask the select board, everybody's permission, would you allow the round schoolhouse to also be open during the same 10 to 1 hours if I got someone to sit in that building, so that people who came to the meeting house, so why don't you go up the road and go see our round schoolhouse, it's been cleaned, it looks really nice. Is there anyone here, I don't think I need a vote, but can I ask permission from you all? When, what do you think, would you allow me to open the building for that Saturday from 10 to 1?
Absolutely, it belongs to the town.
I'll second that motion.
All right,
I'm not sure, because I have one little problem,
Bruce?
and that's those steps. That lead
Yeah.
to the front.
Yeah,
There's a
maybe a little
gap there.
caution sign.
Something, there's a gap there between the big stones that before you, as a step to step into the vestibule area. And there's a gap there, and if somebody was elderly or more marginal in terms of handicap, wanted to walk in there, they could very easily, and there's no railing either, just to catch them, to step in that separation,
Okay,
which is about yay, I wanna say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good
Yeah.
4 or 5 inches.
Is there
Maybe
something
6.
that can be done temporarily to remedy that for the day?
Well, yeah, I mean, I could make it a point of filling that back space in with smaller stones, so that when we slide the top stone over, it will not, right now, if you step on it and you lean up, as you're going up into this building, if you take the foot that's on that stone and give pressure to the ball of your foot, that stone tips. So I'm worried about anybody getting, I think what rightfully Bruce is worried about somebody getting hurt.
It wobbles.
And 3 steps by law, I know our insurance
Should
company
have a hand.
should have a handrail. So I'm not sure if it's formally ready, unless we made a temporary wooden one that we attach to the outside or something, if somebody's wanting to.
I would really like to just combine the day, just
Yeah,
because
we can
it
make
looks
something up.
good and I think it
Yeah.
would be a nice advertisement.
Yeah.
Actually, I did spend some time with Cynthia and she wants to be ex officio on anything like this, and she would love to be the person to sit in that room for 2-3 hours on Saturday.
Fantastic.
And she has photo albums of all the work that's been done, and she just dying to get involved in some way, and it would do her good, and I think it would be a good gesture to
Be
the
good.
historical committee.
Yeah.
That's a
So
wonderful
with your
idea.
permission, we'll open the
Okay,
building and we'll
okay.
take a look at some of the safety issues, if we
Okay.
really deem it not
And this is
necessary, we won't
this is
do it.
for
Saturday the 4th. Okay,
Of September.
of September, yeah,
All right, October, we're in September now.
September now, this is for
Three
this,
days,
yes.
3 days
This
from
is
now.
this weekend.
Yes, it's this
Right.
weekend.
Right.
Dan?
Oh my God, wait a minute,
Yeah, today's the first.
that's right, I'm sorry, 9/4, all right, yeah.
So somebody can get those steps done before Saturday?
Let's see, we're
Well,
supposed to have a
Mark, Mark's
good
over there raising his hand, Mark.
day.
Yeah, I'll do that tomorrow.
Would you do that?
Fantastic, thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you, Mark. All right, we'll have a safe entrance to that building. Cynthia and her daughter are gonna, and I'll get her in there and set her up. And then I can be between the 2 different buildings. That would be wonderful. I think it would be good for the town and for Cynthia.
Can
and her-
Will you be able to make a temporary railing?
Yeah, I'll come up with something.
Oh, perfect.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very
All
much.
right, Mark.
And Mark, thanks for cleaning out that culvert next to my mailbox. Don't think I didn't notice it. It's great. I'm really doctoring up to it, but you did. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right.
No problem.
Well, very good. So thank you so much. We'll move on then to item number 4 on the round schoolhouse repair list. If you take a look a few weeks ago, Stan gave us, I have it here, the list of items that really need to be repaired. Okay, and let's just go through, I'll just read them all, read off one at a time, anybody wants to, extermination of the power post beetles, what do you wanna do about that?
Well, we paint someone to look at it, they say that they are there, but if we paint anything wood, cover it with either paint, linseed oil, the email that I have a copy of, if anyone wants to read it, we just cover it with something, it'll break the life cycle of that beetle, and what's there now eating wood will die.
Is this something to be done in the spring,
No,
winter,
Can be done anytime.
anytime.
anytime?
Well, winter would probably freeze,
Does that mean cover it with an oil or a plastic or?
no, and they've
Okay,
already
right,
been
got it.
covered, the walls have
Got it.
already been covered,
Yeah.
so, and the floors are covered with, a sealer.
Right.
So technically, the powder coming out of the wainscoting on the northeast part of the circle, northwest part of the circle, should be the last activity in that location, in the building, to occur. So that's sold itself essentially by what Bruce has been doing and the information he went by and what he's done inside.
Okay.
With the other fellow, whatever his name is.
Alright, so it's on our.
Mark, I did, but the guy that got the advice from, I forgot his name now.
Right,
Yeah.
Haskins, Stephen Haskins, I think.
okay. What's on our radar right now?
Steve
That's not
Haskins.
Steve
Very
Haskins.
good. Alright, let's move on to number 2, paint metal hoop encompassing the top of exterior wall with rust neutralizer. Where is this hoop?
Well, if you look at the top of the exteriors of the building, you notice there's a metal ring that was used to keep the top of the brick from any kind of distortion. And that apparently is rusted. It looks like it's the original ring. There is space, a slight space between the bricks and it. And my thought was, you know, you can get a $15 can of rust solidifier and put a piece of aluminum behind it, go around and paint it so that it gets locked in its current status and doesn't continue to deteriorate.
Should the gap be filled that you're speaking, referencing?
Well, it's not distorted yet.
Okay.
It's staying up there.
Okay,
as it
so the
is.
gap isn't really
So,
open.
you know, if I stop slipping, I'd say, hey, we gotta do something else.
Okay.
But, and that's a good point, glad you brought it up for those that are listening, here, but I think that would,
Okay.
and I'd be willing to do
That
that
would
at
be
some
like a
point.
spring project for next year?
Sure.
Okay, so 2022, move and level stone steps to threshold of the round schoolhouse entry. Well, we're gonna do a temporary this week, so we know that's on our temporary fixes is going to happen. Move and level the stone steps to the toilets. Again, that could be something in another,
I think we could probably do that amongst ourselves, if not this fall, next spring or early summer. The stone that's there is a wonderful stone, it's just turned backwards. The
okay,
thickest part should be closest to it because the ground slopes down underneath it. So it would level it, and then we need to put something on top of that. And there are two other stones that would be right for that.
I was just
area.
gonna say, there may be some other work that can be done, so I wouldn't even worry about anything this fall, unless we have a nice long fall with no
Yeah,
snow.
yeah.
And we have nothing to do, we
Yeah.
can all go and move rock. The women's and men's, the toilet doors and the missing front wall boards, that was some 2 items that I know that's a little carpentry work. What do you think we need to do for that, just get materials that are appropriately aged for it?
It probably would involve, you know, if someone's handy, I mean, I have the tools to done it. I've made my own kitchen cabinets in addition to the ones we bought. They look exactly alike. There's a capability of doing that. It's just a matter of getting the wood that is matched. And if we could get period wood, that would be wonderful. I don't know how easy or difficult that would be. But that could be easily done. It would involve disassembling the door, making the proper panel, and then reassembling it, but that's all possible.
But you know what, we got such a great community response when I put out an email and Front Porch Forum, that might be something that we can do.
Excellent.
Okay, so we can reach out to the community, and I think they like to be involved, so that's okay. How about the resealing boards in the men's room, so is that same kind of issue, I didn't notice that.
It's the same kind of board, but it looks like it's a hardwood. There's a panel that's probably 6, 7, 8 inches wide that extends across the ceiling of the men's room. It's not there.
Okay. The loose bent siding boards at the northern gable end, I know which one you're talking about, that looks like it needs to be screwed in there. There's like a couple of loose ones, but that's pretty much a work bee when we're doing some things. I'll go do this, you go do, so that's a work bee kind of, this sounds like several little work bees, but it's, okay, very good.
Yeah.
Removing the stables from the front of the shed siding, those were signage has been done, again, that would be easy for a simple work bee for someone to take and remove that out. Shovel and remove sand and stones in both toilets, you're talking about in the hole, in the
No,
latrine
no,
itself?
on the floor of the men's and women's toilets is sand and stones. It's like somebody took shovelfuls of sand and stones and just went and shoveled it in and left it. So it's
I wonder if
it's not the
erosion from the weather, you know, and just like the water coming off the.
no, there's no water damage, there's no evidence that something has gone through with water. It's like for whatever reason, at some point, there was a lot of some and sand left on the floor of the two toilets,
Okay, so that
particularly
sounds
the
like
men's room.
Can easily work.
Oh, it's just a matter of cleaning it, I
Okay.
suspect.
Repair, clean and paint the windows of the toilets. Again, these work bees can be advertised to get community people if we had the supplies and just look at it a little closer.
I believe that those windows are there.
The windows are there,
I don't believe they're the same size. I did not measure them, so I'm not 100% sure. But I remember when looking at them, when we were together, and they didn't look like the same size, so I don't know, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
12 and 13, disposing of the rusted, damaged chairs that are left in the vestibule and insect infested. We've already voted to do that. And again, I can come by on a non-rainy day and pick anything up that we wanna put it in the dump or incinerate. Okay, repair interior wall where former wood stove vent pipe exited the building.
You know what that is? As you walk in around schoolhouse, goes like this. It's right over there,
It's
to
on
the
the west
northwest.
wall, where it was a wood stove in there apparently for heat at one time. And when it was taken out, it took out not only the wallpaper in that area, the plaster's missing. The lath is originally there, but it apparently is deteriorated, so the hole is bigger than what it initially was. And what's happening is the plaster's bulging out from the lath behind it. So not only do you have the hole, but as you go about 12, 18 inches, the plaster is coming in. Yeah, it's lifting away from the lath. So I don't know how that goes, whether it gets more or worse or stays the same.
I think anything that is inside that building should be, maybe not have a non-professional repaired. I think, again, there are people in town who are professionals that we might be able to reach out to for a small job like this and hire them to do that rather than a selectman or woman doing it. So
Really?
that, yeah. So that's something that we might have to hire out for, not do it, okay. Obtaining the plaque noting the building as in the national, okay, that's my job, I'm taking care of, I'm doing
Working
some
on
research on that for the meeting house and for the round schoolhouse. The sign repair, we've already had that in progress, number 16, that's done, check. Repair the brick above the entry door. Are these on the round building itself?
They're on the vestibule where you enter. There's a heavy, I'm gonna guess a 7x7 beam or a 6x6 beam, whatever, over the door entry to the vestibule. And if you look up at that, there's about 4 to 6 bricks that are missing, and there's bricks over here on the side. I don't know if they're the same ones that came from there. And all they need to be done is mortared back in place.
Okay, sounds like something a professional
That would be the ideal.
Ideal, so that's something we can
Do
research
some
another
border fill
time,
in.
okay? Okay, possibly relocate the lilies to enable an aesthetic appearance and provide mowing and around the, I would think that would be an excellent spring project. next summer to look at some of the landscaping, and if we get a National Historic Registry sign, we'll get that up, and then we can have like a little ceremony and have a garden. I know Gwen, you've done a lot of work out there, planted some plants.
No, I didn't do anything.
Oh, I thought I thought you put the lilies out
No.
there. Oh, all right,
They planted themselves.
okay, well, I know you like looking at them. Out the window. So I think that would be fun. So again, community might be, gardeners would love to be able to say that I helped plant that garden. So I think that's.
Or even donate some other plants that
Plants.
would look good around it too,
I think the
so.
meeting house might in the spring be doing a plant sale, so it could be in conjunction with that. So that's cool. I think everybody should be aware of it. Yes, sir.
I've given some thought to that, and there's somebody, I don't wanna mention the person's name because they haven't committed their time to it. They haven't committed their time to it, but there's a person down at at Susie's that's doing the landscaping down there, that works in there, so I was thinking about asking that person to spearhead or work this of what you're talking about. That's thing one. Thing two is, I think it would be a great idea to redo the whole front, to redo the whole thing. And what I mean by that is dig out your lilies, dig out everything that's valid, put it to the side. Bruce can bring his 40-year-old tiller that he just rebuilt it, bring it and turn the whole damn thing up. And
Put a nice garden, nice.
Yep, and we can stone it off or wood it off or leave it the way it is, mulch it, whatever anybody decides to do.
I think that'd be an excellent idea. Again, community involvement and people having ownership of it. Last but not least, replace 3 rows of board on the front of the 7-foot wide toilet exterior wall.
There's one board that's, I believe, missing on the left of the
As you're walking
opening
in.
to the 2 toilets.
Okay.
And that a board needs to be installed. When you look over to the right, at the top of that wall and the bottom of the wall, the boards that are there extend all the way across. And then there are these 2 or 3 rows, I forget what's 2 or 3. They went halfway in, and halfway in, and they nailed it. And excuse my French, it looks like hell that way. If we could get boards long enough to extend it across, enhance the appearance, I think that'd be wonderful.
Suggestion, if I might, I would think this, another one of, I love this, I live off of that place, I walk around with a pad all day, Stan, we want to talk about that. But anyway, cross it off, whatever. Stan has made great lists in the past for the school, which started all of that. But my point is that when we get to maybe spring, or whenever we decide to do this, that at one point, the people that are spearheading this, that we go over there, take a list, make a list of the materials and things that we need, then get the people together to do the work.
Sure, you
So
just
what-
have everything is ready and you pick up that shovel. And that kind
Now you're getting.
you empty that bag of mulch.
Whatever.
Yeah, but I agree. David, do you have something to say? Oh, I thought you were raising your hand. All right, well, Stan, I agree with Bruce that you do make excellent lists. I'm a list person myself. If you don't mind, I'm going to probably rewrite your list and try to put it into a couple little categories, maybe spring, fall. And this way we have something to bounce around.
And we need to re-review it again too, because
Yeah.
I think there's a couple there that weren't on the list, like those boards.
Sure.
If I'm not duplicating. Round schoolhouse, the shed facing west, the work that was done that didn't overhang the sill, and the boards that were left hanging out over
That's all.
the overlap is on
Yeah.
that, okay, forget it.
But no, I think when we say we're looking at committee work, I mean, the select board does like to get things, that's why we're here, because we're involved. We don't need to be breaking sweat every time, but
We have the
but,
basement of
we
Susie's.
can get some other people. Good, thank you.
Right?
All right,
we were talking about repair lists and stuff?
yeah, for the,
I'm not
For the
talking about the
round
round schoolhouse, whatever happened to fixing the fence around the ball field? It's still broken.
Yeah, that's my duty, and I just have been busy.
Oh, okay,
But
I just was,
Stan left me the repair wood, and it's just a matter of making sure.
okay, I just noticed, when we went by the other day, it was still leaning.
yeah,
I'll try to get it this next week.
Alright.
We need to clone Mark a couple of times so that,
Just a
but you
moment.
need to do your road work, get that saved first.
First, you're
Yeah.
running the wheeled excavator right now, so, well, do I have it right somewhere at the end of this month?
I got it on the 24th.
Yeah,
So 24th.
I'm not
So we're
trying to do
gonna
anything,
talk,
it's
we're gonna
like,
talk about that shortly. Guy?
Just one quick question, and I'm just gonna throw this at you, Mark. Because we're looking for some hours for Mark, maybe after he's finished with the road work, he could double up and maybe if these are some of the things that you could do,
Be glad to do it.
if it's within, your level of doing things. I know you've worked with wood all your life, so that's not an issue, but the brick and everything else, it didn't seem like, a rocket scientist had to do it. So maybe rather than hire someone, we could have,
I'm concerned about the historical accuracy of
presidents.
that building, the
Oh,
brick building itself.
oh, okay.
I just don't wanna, I think there may be too many toes stepped on if
Oh, because.
Well, even if you hire someone, they're gonna have to do I guess, go through the same thing. Is there any way we can find out what we have to do?
yeah, we do need to do
Okay.
that, yes, that's what, I'm gonna take a look at this list and say, well.
No, I was just trying to give Mark some extra hours,
We're gonna fill this day up.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about that, we're gonna.
You're in trouble.
We're gonna talk about that.
Hurricane
We're bringing
season.
us the whole
And
road.
working with Stan and Bruce is a gem.
I know.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it.
A gem? Oh, I like.
Gem.
Yeah.
Gem.
Yeah.
Alright. If we can,
No, you guys
we
are
can
good.
move on, because I know we don't wanna stay here much later, I think my
Yeah.
schedule's 8:50, but maybe
Yeah.
some of the things I've already been covered. Alright, so now we're down to full-time road supervisor job description discussion. Again, today is the first day that Brookline has a full-time employee, right? That's
September 1.
It's September 1, it's never happened before, so we're sort of excited that we can get all we can out of his expertise, but we need to really have something in writing that is a job description. I emailed out a couple of things, I certainly have other job descriptions from other towns, that have it. I found this one paragraph, I do have to read it to you, I think it's pretty much encompasses what he has to do.
What
It's
page
one
is it
thing.
on?
It's not, it's another one I just got that I didn't send out, but it says, identifies, oversees, and performs the timely and effective maintenance and repair of all municipal roads, right-of-ways, and drainage systems, performs and oversees needed manual work such as shoveling, sign repair, installation, flagging, trash debris removal, soil, asphalt compacting, and all related work. Now, that's not my words, it was on a VLTC
Yeah, it's a model.
page, a model of terms, and there's all sorts of models here. Job descriptions are important. They don't have to be long, though. I mean, some of the job descriptions are pages and pages long. How do we do this without, how do we come up with this sometimes with 5 people, it's hard to, how do we do this?
I don't like that. This is crazy. I
I
haven't.
like short paragraphs.
Keep it simple, yeah.
Seems so
But I
stupid,
mean,
but like,
I just Googled it, I got road foreman
I
for
haven't had a
each
chance to read this and I'd like to read it, but I don't see where you have to put a rope around this man. I know this is a position that could be somebody else's.
Correct.
But that always could be changed.
Correct.
Okay, so I don't see what the benefit to putting a rope, so to speak, around Mark's neck to agree to every little thing on this list. I think it's kind of a little much. But I'd like to read it first, and I haven't had a chance to read all of this, to see if there's anything else that could be added to that. And I like that. I think that covers it. And Mark is, Mark, he's willing to help us in other ventures, like
I know, but you
you referred
really
to.
do have to say, it's a job description, it's
I
not
know.
just Mark's job
I
description.
know, I just said
We
that.
have to be very clear on that.
I know that, but when we get a new person, you're gonna hire a new person anyway. So you're gonna have to probably change the job description.
No, not necessarily.
Not necessarily, but the select board that's in charge at that time, I wanna do that. once they see the job description, well, it didn't include this, it didn't include that, we should change it.
Well, just like we do with a lease, you're gonna have to update things as they go. And I
don't think
agree,
we have to
keep
be
it
too
simple,
crazy about it.
keep it simple, stupid, is that what you?
Yes,
That's what it is.
Yes, will you email us or email us those other copies, if you have a scanner?
Sure,
I'd be interested in taking a look at them.
Sure.
Isn't that the one you sent in an email?
I said, you know what, then I kept on Googling and I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna print out all these papers, so.
Well, you can only put so many on a,
Yeah, but like the town of Johnson is advertising for a public works department, so on and so forth, so. Would you like me to send out more information, ask you all?
If you come across some, and you know Town of Johnson, just email me Town of Johnson Highway and I'll find it.
Okay,
Save you some work.
alright, so we'll put this, anybody else, David?
Yeah, two things. I mean, I just wanted to echo your point that, I mean, if we're going to create a job description, it's a job description for the position. It's not for Mark.
That's
And
true.
it's what will help us down the road at some point when Mark no longer wants to be the road supervisor and we have to find a new road supervisor. And will help future boards to understand what the expectations of that role are. So I do think it's important to do, but I agree, it doesn't have to be
6 pages.
along the lines of the 6-page template. The other thing I want to note, though, and that we don't necessarily have to have a huge discussion about this right now, but I don't think that I agree with us characterizing this position as full-time.
Yeah, 30 hours.
I know that we've increased the hours of this, but to my mind, this is still a part-time position.
He has a point.
Fair enough, I like that, those words are fine with me.
He has a point.
Yeah, I
He
know,
does, it's not a,
it's not a 40-hour
no,
week,
it's not 40-hour week. So
fair enough.
we can change
Good
it.
point.
Okay, alright, so, I'll share some more clips
Table
and
for
I'll even make up you know, I like doing this, I'll make up a little job description, I do that, cause that's what I do. This, make up a description, so I'll type and share it and then we can discuss it on the next agenda.
Yep,
I'll
that'd
bring
be
you
fine.
wine.
Great, okay. Alright, job description. Alright, thank you, now we're gonna move on to reports, so not too late, Mr. Tanza?
We made it up last
Just a quick reminder that we have the Board of Civil Authority meeting Wednesday on the 8th, and it's an important meeting because basically, as I've said a number of times, the next general election is gonna be a total absentee ballot election. And we need to have all towns need to have their voter checklist in as much order as possible so that we don't have any errors or any mistakes. So I'm hoping that everyone will be there. I've sent you the voter checklist, or you picked it up. I've sent you some letters so that maybe you could review them before you get there. And I'm hoping the meeting would be just maybe an hour and 20 minutes at the most. If you review them and, like I say, you see someone who you think should be challenged, and just mark it down and we'll send the challenge letters out. If we get them back, they're not challenged anymore. So it's a relatively easy procedure, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of you there. The other thing is that we've been very busy in the office, many conveyances, a number of things going on in town, a lot of refis and so forth. So the real estate market is still pretty hot, and hopefully it will calm down when the weather changes. But it's been a busy time in the office. We even had a marriage certificate that we sold. So yeah, so it's busy, but we're under control. Gwen continues to do the updates in the land records books, so everything's good. I've been working with the listers and everything is gelling very fine there, so we're in good shape, I think.
A question about the generator, did you do any, I have it on it, we brought it up last month.
No, I asked the board to see if they could find someone who could look at this and find out what we need. The generator's paid for, but the installation is probably just as much as the generator. But the fact is that we're halfway there. So, and I think it's a good thing to have because, as you can see, we're having more and more weather events that may require this. It's not so much a meeting as it is the plumbing and to replace all that if we have a long freeze period.
So should any of us be making calls to electricians?
Yeah, so I was just gonna suggest that we have Don Pierre
Um,
on our list.
Bernier,
I think we need a
who's
couple
the
of
other
them.
guy, is it,
I met Lawrence and Lobert coming
Okay.
down the Athens Road last week. They're out of Saxon's River, I think.
No, Douglas
Yeah.
Falls.
Dallas Falls.
Yeah.
And I
I've
also
seen them
know,
twice, two different vehicles over
Uh-huh.
here.
well, if you could maybe craft a small letter and send it to a number of vendors stating what our position is, that we have a portable generator that we'd like to hook up to the office. And we're looking for an estimate. We would obviously have to put a new, not a new, but a secondary panel down there as a cutoff. So that when the power goes back on, it doesn't send power back over the lines and electrocute somebody working on the lines. But they know what to do.
all right, I'll develop a portable generator bid letter.
Okay,
I'll share it with the select board.
yeah,
And then anybody can, we'll get 3 or 4
hopefully, yeah.
companies that will
Okay,
do that.
because I've had some issues with Doppler, responding to my requests.
Sure.
So I think it'd be a good idea.
Okay, so that's the generator letter. Okay, and I do have from Guy, the delinquent dog list, and I recognize I have to bring my list, there are several dogs have passed.
Yes.
Several residents have moved.
That's been,
So the list is.
I can update it tomorrow because some have,
Okay. All right, so let's move down here, okay, list of training links. I talked
Dot.
briefly- Yes, sir.
God, sorry. I just said one thing, Guy. So I emailed you about this, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to make the Zoom call for the Board of Civil Authority. I'm going to be out of town.
okay.
And I'm not yet sure where I'll be on Wednesday night, but if I can make it, I'll make it. But unfortunately, I
That's fine.
won't really know
And
until that night. Depends on
And
where we
maybe
are.
if you could, if you can't make it, if you could send me, if you have any challenges that you think that are on that list,
Mhm.
give me a shout or just
Sure.
email me. And then, I can incorporate those into the meeting and,
Okay.
or, after the meeting.
Okay, cool.
Thanks,
Yeah,
I
I'll do that
appreciate
at the very least. Thank you.
Okay, the next item is the select board chair report. The first one is this list of training links, discussion about positions. I find the positions are a little difficult. I don't mind writing, giving a job description based upon what I know, but the actual hiring of people makes it a little difficult. I talked with Helen Holt, who is from Townsend, but has worked very diligently here at the town, getting our paperwork all up to date. And she has sent me a short list of links that NEMRIC videos and brand list documents and documentation that can be watched by applicants who are interested in the job. All right, so I've had 3 people who have written to me that are interested. My question is, maybe one of them might be interested in looking at the treasurer's position because he has been an auditor in Weston. I'd like to talk to him about it if it's all right with you all.
Yeah.
I know we're gonna advertise it, but in the meanwhile, Ruth Dano is gonna be back in mid-September. She's up in Maine, she's interested, and Sally Cutts is interested. So I am going to contact the 3 of them and talk with them to see if they start looking at the videos, and once they watch the videos, are they still interested in the coming and working? Like, how do we know, how many listers do we need?
How many what?
How many listers do we need?
Normally there's 3,
All right,
and we've been getting along with 2, but 3 is ideal. And that's always, that's what we've always had, but we can do it with 2. The only time it could be a little difficult is if we had a reappraisal and so forth, but I don't see that right now, but I do see it in the near future.
my question is, though, Helen is very experienced with it. I can't see putting 2 newbies together without Helen being there.
No, but like you said, there are many webinars, there are many training things to do. I don't think it requires some expertise. no doubt. But I think they can gather that information by shadowing and watching and asking questions. The NEMRIC may have some programs, some help with that. I think we should give them a call and see if they can help us. I know Bill Hall up in Hartford was I learned a great deal from that man. He was the treasurer up there, but he's just an incredible sense of wealth. And you know a lot about that also, Stan.
Yeah, I did it for 7 years, and
Oh.
so first off, there's a district rep. And if anyone has any trouble, if Helen Holt says I don't wanna answer any questions, or any other lister nearby said they wouldn't be willing to help the new listers, the district rep is the person to call.
Yeah, I forgot that you were a lister for many years. Do you
Yeah.
mind if, I mean, I'm gonna do it this week, but if I call you and talk a little bit and get some advice on how
Sure.
to set this up? Because I'm just a little nervous about, do we pay people to sit with Helen? I mean, are they is this a paid training? Those are the questions that I don't know.
Well, I can't see how you would be able to recruit someone without some compensation.
Okay,
That's my opinion, but I don't know.
all right.
Stan, you're well versed in this.
Well, I went into it, was in real estate appraising, had no idea what NAMROC was, had no idea what the state laws were in terms of listing, and they're significantly different than what a real estate appraiser would do. However, the grand concepts are very similar, so I went into it cold turkey. The gentlemen that were there offered to be of help, that were on the listers before I and Roger Poitras and I'm trying to think of Penny Harrington. We three were on, and then Doug Wellman came on in place of Roger I think left at some point. So they were all newbies, they picked it up. It is a little more sophisticated now,
But there's
I
more tools.
understand. There's more tools, yeah, so the job, I don't know if it's any more difficult or any easier, it's more technical, I think. And the other source, if all else fails, is there's a manual. There's a lister's manual.
Yeah.
If you go in there and look at it, it will tell you the statute it's referring to and what you need to do. And again, you call the district rep and they usually are getting good to get back to you the same day or the next day. And you know, we were what, 1 or 2 days a week? You did.
No, Cy Bailey is excellent.
Yeah, and Cy Bailey is wonderful. So it's not insurmountable. I wouldn't think it would be anything that someone couldn't grasp if they're willing to apply themselves. That's the key.
If they have the interest, yes.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I went on to see, and I noticed that January 25th, 2016, there were minutes from a listers meeting. And that's the only mention of any minutes ever on the for listers, and I don't know, do they have to hold agenda meetings?
If it's a meeting like ours, where you're
Right.
making decisions about policy, procedure, but most of what they do here
It's working.
is working. The
Okay.
statutes are already set.
Right.
You know, there's a few decisions that some towns need to make, like if there's a subdivision in town, you wanna, and it totals 80 acres, does the town want to take the policy, if there isn't already a policy in place, of assessing 80 acres? Or do you wanna go and assess each of the lots that comprise that 80 acres, whether they're all 10 lots? So there's a big difference in what your grand list is gonna determine, but you, as a town, have to state that, that would be a policy decision. There should be minutes for something like that.
All right, but this.
Tax appeals, I believe, have to be an open meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would assume they would, yeah.
I didn't see, all right, so that was just some questions of like, well, where are the parameters around this?
Yeah, no, I'd be glad to help.
So Dot, couple
Yes, sir.
things just that occur to me. I mean, one is, I guess I would suggest giving all three of these people access to the resources you're talking about, just to get an idea of what the position involves. And then ultimately it's up to those people and us to decide who is best. I mean, if we think for the moment that we would potentially appoint one person to give us 3 listers for the duration of the year, or I guess I'm not exactly sure what our situation is going to be, because let's not forget all 3 lister positions will be up for election at town meeting. And they have to be residents. So
Yes.
and Mike are not, if three
Residents.
people run for listers, then Helen and Mike will no longer be our listers. So it would behoove us to try to get people who are interested, I guess, or, I mean, I'm sure Helen and Mike may be interested in continuing being appointed if we only have one person who runs for lister come town meeting, but I don't know. And I guess the thing is, we wouldn't be compensating anyone until we'd appointed someone as a lister, and they then are a town employee and they would be compensated with the listers. So
I would tend to concur with that last statement. I mean, if they're interested, they might want to see what they're really getting into before they are formally hired and paid.
All right, so having them look at all the.
I would have them looking.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had a chance to look at it myself, but.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair enough, thank you for that advice, perfect. All right, moving on then, planning commission, I have accepted with regret the resignation from the planning commission of Daniel Dobson. His health requirements have been moving to Brattleboro, and so he is selling his residence up here, and I would like to send from the select board a letter of regret. I said it to him, but I would like to do it in writing. Which then means that even though last month we appointed Daniel to our planning commission, I know that, not Daniel. The other one's
The
Daniel.
new gentleman.
The new gentleman's Daniel also.
Yes.
They both need
No.
Daniel Kit Carter.
Yeah, quick guard.
Yeah, so his name is Daniel also. So,
Bicknard.
yeah, Daniel K, is new. Tom has asked to be, to have his load lightened because of his family responsibilities. So that leaves Charlie Ezekiel and Barbara Bourne, and Daniel, and right now Tom. So I'm gonna have to, see if we can get any other people interested in the planning commission, for just to keep going on for 5 people, so I'll do a list serve on that email. Okay, next item, the treasurer, Michael Masters, requested that we start looking for a replacement. However, he will continue in his position until March if need be. With everything else going around, I haven't even approached looking for a treasurer or and such. So, any advice here? Now, Samara, I do have to mention, Samara has been picking up an awful lot more of the work, and Judy's been working on keeping all the bookkeeping going. Samara is not gonna be available for a few weeks because she had a death in the family, her father's passed away. So she was going to originally tonight do the end of the year budget review, but she asked to be pulled from the agenda, so I just didn't put it on. Not sure when she'll be back to work with us on that, but we do have a treasury issue that will be on the next agenda, because we're not gonna solve anything tonight, but just if you have the advice.
Did she say she was gonna come to the 15th minute? We don't know.
She
She's
said
not.
she wasn't sure.
I think she's gonna be out of state, she thinks she's not gonna be around for a good 3 weeks, so.
Oh.
I'll reach out.
When do we usually start the budget? In October, no?
I guess so, but we still have to summarize what happened at the end of the fiscal year
Yeah.
2021. So, and that goes along with the ARPA, because we still need to see what happened with that, so there's gonna be a lot going on for a new person to deal with. All right.
Right, although it's worth noting that we would start the budget, it's like we would start the budgeting process before the last fiscal year numbers are finished most of the time anyway.
Okay,
So, I mean, when we're ready to start the budgeting process, there's nothing strictly speaking that the treasurer needs to do for us to be able to start that process ourselves.
when did you start it last year, was it in September or October or?
It's October.
November?
I think October probably.
Okay. All right, very good. All right, moving on, very quickly, I already mentioned when Lynn was here, the rescue meeting on September 16th in Brattleboro, 6:30, I am going to attend that. And I have on here virtual Vermont Emergency Preparedness Conference. I'm signing up for that. That is going to be September 14th, 15th, and 16th. Unfortunately, I think the webinar, which runs from 12:30 to 4:30 on those 3 days, the 14th, 15th, and 16th, I think I have a doctor's appointment sometime in the middle of the 14th, so I'm not exactly sure. I have to go and confirm that. But I think it's important because just knowing all the emergency things that happened with the storm, being prepared is important, so I figured better run now or later. So they have a pretty good setup of information. We'll learn about Tropical Storm Irene and looking what they learned, disaster relief, how to make sure everyone's prepared for an emergency, hazard mitigations, virtual, how to act virtually during a emergency, disaster resilience, networking, Vermont National Guard resources, and so on and so forth. So sounds interesting. So I'll let you know how that goes in October after I attend that. And there's no cost to us. If anybody else wants to go or attend, just shoot me a note and I'll send you the links. Okay. Next item, handicap parking signs, 2 with posts and line sprayer. Mark, I'm gonna give you this book back. What I would like to see is, I put little notes here, 2 signs, 2 posts, and very simple sign. They have 12 by 18. It just says handicap parking, and the plastic one is fine. It's going to cost about $16. I'm going to give this to you.
Okay. I got the next
Same one? Okay, so it's this one, right?
Okay.
And then I don't know where they sell the posts, but
Yeah, those
they're
are
in there
as
too?
well, and I may have some.
I think you might. Instead of buying expensive tape for marking, I thought if we purchased this marking wand and not buy a case of striping paint, but W&W sells it separately, each can cover 200 feet of 4-inch striping, and we just have to decide how wide to make one here, and then we have to talk to Bruce about getting one set up at the school, handicap parking by law. So if you could order that for us, and then we'll work behind the scenes to get that done.
All right.
Right.
Good, so two signs and
2 signs and the paint
mark.
sprayer and the mark, yeah,
Sure.
I think that would be good.
Okay.
All right, we talked about this Tattersall, so now we're in building commissioner. Bruce, it's you.
Yeah,
Now we're
right. No.
Talk to me.
Hi.
Okay, first off, I'm going away for last week in September.
Yay.
I agree. I concur. But during that period of time, I pretty much have a lot of lay down time usually. So I'm starting to work on a wish list of what I think the meeting house should spearhead going forward to a either 2, 3, 4, 5 year plan. So I'm working on that. I have really any more details about that.
Okay, but we do have to meet with the meeting house people too.
Well,
You're gonna work on it, okay.
Secondly, I wanted to get Mark, once things calm down for you in October, to tie up some things on this building. The ceiling that we talked about the light that you saw appearing in the ends of the building where mice are coming in.
Yes.
And all that related stuff, nothing wrong with it about that, and hanging a gutter over that bulkhead to see if we could stop the water from coming in the basement. That's it for that. I think so. I'm trying to a track of Susie's budget. And I can't seem to get it accurate. I think I have it accurate, but I won't know until I see some financials. But I'll just give you this very quickly. You're gonna see two debits in the AP warrant, if you haven't already seen it, for $480 some odd dollars, which is expected for requested unfunded liability from the state on testing the school's water. We had a different one last year for the problem that was happening over Hoosick Falls, and you'll remember if you were on the board, that the entire state was obligated to do about $600 or $700 worth of testing on the water related to that. It's starting to really annoy me in as much as we spent a lot of money to clean up that water. It keeps coming clean every time, but whatever. We have a lease coming up, and we're gonna look at that as a part of what we should do going forward as far as changing the lease, let's put it that way. But like I said, I don't have anything more for Susie's because everything's all set. I'm pretty sure that I'm probably gonna call Code and Code because they're an approved vendor with us and ask them to service the gas runs. I have requested at least 4 or 5 times for Susie's to give me a list, give me the amount of consumption, figuring I go around, scout around for her to see if I could get another company to give to service the propane as well as deliver her propane, because companies usually won't do it if you have both. But I remember when I talked to Coda back in 2015, when we switched to Black River, or it was Keene Gas, that they said, anytime you wanna come back, just give us a call, so I might end up holding them to it. But I would earmark just for them to take care of the servicing of the gas boilers. Nothing to do with the HVAC or plumbing or anything else. Because I'm having an issue with getting somebody to do that, other than the original vendor, which to me is not a choice, for reasons I won't get into. So lastly, is everything's fine with that school? Other than everything I told you, and nothing, I just took a look at the water system again today. Hardness, everything's going okay, and I think, if I'm correct, that even with Nancy Burke had 2 charges for water testing, $95 back on July 19th, and just the $480, the $480 one that you'll see in the AP warrant tonight. So that previous $95, all of the charges from 6/9, not including the $480, are charges that I have, including WW buying salt, which is most of it, almost all of it, other than her, is $167 since June 7th, which is dramatically down from roughly $1,500, $1,700 a month. So saying that, if my numbers are correct, and I take and Momani's 14,500, which is on the AP warrant tonight. If my numbers are accurate, which I went by the last financials, and I won't know until I have current financials, but now I have control of the expenses, in part with thanks to Guy giving me making sure my list was correct. I have somewhere in the neighborhood after 9/1, which is today, if the rental was paid, somewhere around $3,900 in that account after all those debits.
Excellent.
So if it's accurate, now I don't know because I don't have financials everywhere to go against, but now that the expenses, see the expenses, everybody? Now you see the expenses? So now the expenses are minimal, it's a lot easier to watch and control. And so I've worked that out, and as soon as I have an accurate financial, I can give you a more tidy number, but I believe we're right around $3,900, and if we don't have any other expenses, other than something happens, until October 1st, we should be going up to $5,000. Even after all the expenses have been made on the 14.5.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
I think that's it.
All right, David, salt sand shed report, you wanted to share some information with us, please?
Yeah, I'll try to be fairly quick. So I met with Margot Gia, who is our project manager from Wyndham Regional Commission, and Chris Hunt, who's the project manager from VTrans, the other day. And the plans, the final set of plans from Ron Bell are now with VTrans for final review that we think will go fairly quickly, and there will probably be very few, if any, changes. Along with those plans came a revised estimate of the cost of the project, the construction cost of the project, which is perhaps not surprisingly about 30% at least, if not more, higher than what the project was envisioned to be a few years ago. So basically the bottom line is the grant, the federal grant money isn't going to change for this project. But we have now, realistically, we're probably looking at the salt sand shed costing about $100,000 more than what it was envisioned to have cost. So the options we have are basically to absorb that money ourselves, which I've made very clear we cannot do. Not do the sand shed, which none of us want to have that be the outcome, or we try to get supplemental funding. So Margot is also project managing a couple of other larger than ours, but somewhat similar salt sand sheds, all of which, by the way, Ron Bell is doing the engineering on. So basically all of us towns who are in this situation, and everyone is in this situation, are going to apply for, so in the next few weeks, I, with Margot's help, am going to put together an application for the municipal mitigation grant offered by the state of Vermont. The deadline is October 1st for applying for that. There's also another transportation alternatives grant that has a deadline in November. Unfortunately, since we are unlikely to have a response from the first grant request before the second grant request is due, we're probably going to have to apply for both of them for basically supplemental funding to try to give us, we're still working, I still have to work out all the numbers of exactly how much we need, but we're going to basically apply for grants or grants to try to get us the remaining money. And assuming if we were to get all that grant money, and we would then be just in the situation of having to have the match about what we originally envisioned it being, which was around $50,000 total, then the plan would be, assuming we had the money, the plan would be to advertise, put out an RFP in January probably, and then see what we get. Because of course, the cost estimates are just estimates. We don't really know what somebody might bid on these things. But we can't go, we're not going to begin the process unless we know we have enough money to at least be able to pay for what the estimate is. So anyway, that's kind of what's going on. So one way or another, we'll get the grant application done by October 1st, and then the other one, and then we'll see we'll see if we get grants or not. So that's kind of it.
Some ARPA money.
What year are we
Sorry?
on with?
Too bad we can't use some ARPA money to help with that.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's one of the things that's pretty explicitly exempted from the ARPA money. I mean, if you read through it, it's quite clear that you can't use it for federal matches or debt obligations or anything like that. So
Has the project manager's fee remained the same?
Has the project manager's fee remained the same? You know,
as near as we can tell, Ron hasn't actually billed us in a long time for anything he's done. But he indicated early on that there was nothing going on. I mean, it's taken a long time, but honestly, it's just been because things have been delayed, not because there was any more work being done than was envisioned. It's just, you know, it's just been a slow process for lots of reasons. But as far as we're aware, all of those costs remain basically what we expected them to be. But the construction cost alone is 35% higher, estimated to be 35% higher than what it was going to be a couple of years ago. So we'll see.
We had it was a 5-year grant. Have they, remind me, did they extend that?
No, in theory, the grant is finished next June 30th, but Chris Hunt has assured us that as long as we continue to move forward with the grant, that deadline won't be a problem. They automatically, when they put in for the next phase, they essentially extend the deadline for everything to be open. So nobody's concerned about that. Nobody from the state is concerned about that being a barrier. Now, if we were to decide that we couldn't afford to do it at this point, and we wanted to, I'm just hypothetically, if we decided all we could do is wait a year or two to see if costs will go back down, whether the grant would be able to remain open for that amount of time, we don't know. Hopefully we don't have to cross that bridge, but if we don't get the grant money, we might have to consider what our other options are. And like I say, there are multiple towns that are in the exact same boat as us, with more needing more money than we need.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much for keeping us abreast of that.
Sure.
All right, so now we get to Mark, purchasing equipment for the town of Brookline. I have on your wheeled excavator and other necessary equipment, and I happen to have the original invitation to bid for a wheeled excavator that was used a few years ago. And, you know, I don't know if this town wants me to start advertising or what you would like us to do. What's up, Mark?
I think there's still time to check into multiple types of machines. You know, have a meeting where we gather information and figure out the best way to finance.
You thinking like a special meeting just for talking about that?
Yeah, or an allotted time in a select board meeting where you could use this information to start the process. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things to consider. Right now, we're renting, and that might get us to a comfortable point of getting production of everything needing to be done this year, being that it's getting later in the summer. I mean, if anybody else has an idea, I'm glad to listen. I've started looking at options, and lately I've just been so busy I haven't been looking at all. Again, I don't know if you wanted to get everybody's input, you know, everybody look and come up with ideas and.
Does everybody have a copy of what was sent out? Okay. Well, I'll email everyone, David sent it to me, the original bid that was put out in 2019, just for starters, to see what words were used, and then we might need a special meeting, because otherwise we'll be too scattered here and there, I think.
We're not gonna put it out to bid, we're gonna go find something and then figure out how to pay for it. I don't see.
This was different, because I'm
Yes.
still saying this to you, this is when it was ultimate
I know, I have.
subject to voter approval, and
That's
that's not the case at this
Not
time.
anymore.
Alright,
We already talked about that.
but I'll share with you anyway, what we
Well, Well,
Yeah.
let me just say I don't think that's a fair characterization of that. I think we decided as a board at the time that we formed a committee to look into what kind of equipment was suitable for us potentially and what might be available. And the outgrowth of that committee was them recommending that we put out this RFP to try to get concrete options. What decision might have ultimately come out of that and whether it would have involved going to the town or not was kind of irrelevant. We still went through that process because we needed to find what the options were. There are a lot of pieces of equipment that might fall into the category of the parameters that were on that RFP. Now, whether we still want to use those options that are laid out in that RFP to find something or not is a fair question to discuss. But we were going through the process whether we felt we needed to go before the voters to get it approved or not. That's my recollection of how we went about it on that board.
What do we think about having a special meeting at some point, maybe in October, to discuss this? I think having the time in a regular meeting is a little tough.
Or at the end of your select board meeting, or an hour early, or a half hour early.
We'd still have to have it warned.
Yeah. One of the questions was, our surrounding towns buy equipment more often than
We do.
We do.
Just wondered if we went to 4 or 5 of these towns to see how they finance, who they finance, what they have, what they like, just get some input from surrounding towns.
Well, that would circumvent all this extra work. But the bottom line is we still have to find the unit. And fortunately, this is really probably a good time of the year because we're coming to the end of the year. It's not as if we need the unit in March, and it's March. It's October almost, and like you said, your work is pretty much almost done, that you think, other than emergency things, done for the year. So I guess what I'm driving at is, you're right, it's great. If somebody wanted to go through that and ask the different towns how they did it, that would circumvent all the extra spinning of the wheel.
Well, again, that would just be a part of it.
Right.
Like if they're buying brand new, that might be different than us
Right.
buying a second.
But it gives us the options like you're saying.
Let's see how they finance it, who they finance, how much time they get to finance.
Well, actually, Stan is going to go to a workshop where they're gonna talk about budgeting, borrowing money, and such
Okay.
later on this month. And so that would be helpful if you could come back with some information with that. I personally can't say that I can reach out to towns. I think I'm a little, I don't wanna
No, I'm
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I know you're totally.
but,
I don't mind helping, but I can't.
okay.
The state treasurer has the best program. It's a 2% interest program. And you apply for the loan twice a year. And they pretty much, they service all the towns. I don't know if you can get any better, financing at this point. And I think the state is also into used or new. So, Stan mentioned it, and I remember when we did this a few years ago, I had all the applications done with the state and everything else, and it seemed to be the best way. So I don't think the financing is an issue, as it is that I thought the select board had advised Mark to go look at some machines, and based upon what his needs are for the town and his expertise in those needs, that he would come up and say, okay, this is what I think the best thing for the town is, and the town would go from there. So I don't know, you know, we kicked this can down the road for so many years now. It's
I still agree with what you're saying, right down to the financing part. It's just, we need to get the man some equipment, and we need to get the town some equipment, because our needs are starting to turn a little more critical, as we've seen, especially this summer, 19 inches in the month of July, I don't know what's going on about that. But we need to, I think, move forward and try and find something within a decent amount of time. Not wait till March, wait till July, wait to ask the town, wait to ask this person, wait to ask person. Baker, just one more thing, do you know what the dates are that they approved?
I believe it was a fall date and a spring date, if I recall. And whether those parameters have changed, I don't know.
Okay.
But Stan may have a better idea.
I can't remember the exact date. I want to say October was one, and then 6 months after that
Yep.
was it, so April the following year was the other.
But it was a pretty good program.
Yeah, it seemed very realistically fair and not, no pun intended, taxing. It was
Yeah.
reasonable, very reasonable.
It appears to me that we could work it out with the person that's selling the equipment to the town in conjunction with that, whether it's rent to buy until then, if we have the approval on the loan, but we have to wait until, I don't know the process, if you have to reapply for the 6 months down the road, if the application's approved, but you just can't do it in October, I don't know any of that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to look that up and find out what their procedures.
Yeah, get the languages and.
But in the meantime, I think the most important thing is we gotta find something we want. That's good.
Yeah, Mark, start looking,
Yeah,
talking,
okay.
if you have any contacts, and you know, I'll schedule a good 20 minutes each next meeting for you to have time to talk, and
Even if you wanna come in and use the laptop here in the office, I'd be more than happy to work with you, you know,
Okay.
get you to the sites and we can, you know, pick up our machine and maybe pick it up the next day and start working.
Alright, okay, yeah, let me,
Yeah, that's, I'd be more than happy to help you with that.
okay.
Back in my house is even better because I have wine.
I also have on your other necessary equipment, I know you're gonna need to start to make a list of some of the things that you're going to need here in town to have available to you, whether it be wheelbarrows, lawnmowers, weed whackers,
Besides 2 chainsaws.
chainsaws, you know, well, you
Yes.
need to start thinking of that, you don't have to have it done right away, but it is something that we said that there is equipment that we need in town, we don't have anything,
Right,
so.
okay.
Was it the carburetor on the,
Yeah, did you get your grader fixed?
no, on the,
The grader's working, I
On the chainsaw.
took the chainsaw, didn't want to idle, and I took it up to where we bought it at Ron Susky, and it's done. They didn't say what over the phone, they said it's ready to be picked up.
All right, I'm gonna let you talk about any more storm damage or, and then when we get down to talk about ARPA funds, I did wanna point out that culverts are something that ARPA will help cover, from what I understand, so you might need to talk with the RG or come up with a list, and then we can bring it to Wyndham Regional. I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'm gonna get ahead of myself, because this is how my train of thought, 5 minutes from now, I'll forget this. But you and Archie may wanna get a list of culvert work that needs to be done
Okay.
to me, and then we can get it to Wyndham Regional and see if any of that can be, we might have to apply for the funds or identify the funds are useful for that before we do the work. I don't wanna do the work and say, oh, can we, pay for this, we did it last month. And they're gonna say, no, you have to tell us ahead of time. So if you could come up with some kind of list, priority list for culverts, we do know that waterways and stormwater is something that we can pay for through this other program.
Okay, I mean, I know that every year we purchase a certain amount of culverts to replace failed culverts. So this will be a separate purchase to ARPA?
I don't know, I don't think so, I think, well, even putting in the culverts, maybe,
Because,
we're not sure yet, but if we knew it, we can ask.
yeah, we have the culvert inventory map and they're all graded for diameters, lengths, shape, and conditions. So going by the worst first is we plan to change out at least 5 sites a year. Some of those take 2 culverts to cross under the road, and some take 2.5, some even 3. But we've been purchasing 15 culverts a year. This year, because of the flood in the grant, there's a failed culvert on Putney Mountain, which is the 3-foot diameter I have permission to get. That one should be in a couple of weeks, and that one the grant will pay for, the Better Back Road grant, so we're lucky there. But there are others, so if this is.
We have 5 years to, of culvert work that we could possibly put in, so just start,
Okay.
just to give you a thought, so that we don't do stuff and then say, oh, we should apply, I thought of that, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, every day, checking culverts, you find one that
Needs work.
needs work, so this would be a good thing to have behind us. Okay, well, I guess first of all, I talked with Car Tree Service, and we canceled out the last date for tree removal due to the hard rains. So the next scheduled date will be September 7th, which is the day after Tuesday. And that's the new schedule, if everything goes right. Tree removal will take place on Hill Road for that.
That's Hill Road.
Yes. We received the rented wheel excavator. It was supposed to be here Monday, but showed up Tuesday due to something technical at the place of offer. So we got it on Tuesday, and I spent majority of one day on top of Whitney Hill Road, or the entire road, correcting some erosions, cleaning out culverts that had silted in, reshaping the runouts and water bars, and cleaning ditches. So that gave me a chance to get refamiliarized with the machine. It's a brand new one again this year, which only had 21 hours, so very nice. Still had plastic MC, radio, air conditioning. So it's a very nice operating machine, and this year the ditch bucket has what they call a steel wrist down at the end where the bucket hooks on. They have this device where you can rotate it around in a complete circle. So you can actually turn the bucket around and dig backwards. It can dig away from you. And then it tilts in all directions, and it's quite amazing.
Sounds like somebody had fun.
Oh, yeah, you'll So anyway, it's an amazing machine, doing a lot of work around town. Just correcting ditches that were filled with clogged leaves and eroded on the edge of the pavement, pulling material back in to reshape, and moving wood out of ditches. Just endless things that we can do with this machine, and the fact that it rolls down the road so nicely it's huge. We've also got the grader had a charging issue, and worked on the grader, got the parts, took that out and re-scraped Athens Road and Ellen Ware Road. Had a small amount of flood damage, which I corrected with the grader, and then went back with the excavator to clean and correct issues that the grader couldn't. After that, I've been working on Parker Road. We had the grant for Parker Road, and we had waited for the power company is standing up all new poles the whole length of Parker Road. And so that's given us the chance to work in the road. They cut the trees back so that they can run the power lines. So that's allowed me to dig the ditches, do the stone lining. And I have a culvert that I was planning to put in tomorrow. If it rains too much, it may be the following day. And to complete the grant, the 3 segments of grant, the final issue for finish will be top gravel, but putting a crown in the road with new finished gravel, and then of course grass seed and hay wherever we disturb the soil. So I should have the grant completed by next week. There'll be some pauses in between the finished product. But in the meantime, we're raising a culvert up by Daniel Dobson's. The culvert nearest Daniel's is failed. And it's because when Grassy Brook water level rises, the water comes up and the water can't get out of the culvert. And so therefore it's collecting sediment. And so after reviewing it with Archie and Mr. Dobson, we decided to raise the culvert up maybe 18 inches, build the road up 18 inches just in that one area over that culvert to allow water to flow. And, make a bigger culvert. So that'll be a project I'll finish before I leave Parker Road. Then after Parker Road, there's I've been talking about it now for a year and a half, 2 years. On top of Whitney Hill, as the hill levels off, we continue it every year for many years. The ditch erodes it cuts into the 1-lane travel portion. So after working with the tree company for the power company, they removed all the trees in this section of road on Whitney Hill. So now that those trees are gone, I plan to dig the bank off to widen the road and create a new ditch and stone line it. There's one culvert in place that will be extended 10 feet. So this will allow for better traffic flow, better plowing, better for bad weather all the way around. So that's a project I'd like to finish while we have the excavator here. And then of course, the tree removal that's taking place on Hill Road is for better drainage also. And after the trees are cut on the 7th, I plan to remove those stumps and again grade the bank off a little further away from the road edge so that we can create better drainage and better vision coming around the corner. It's a good win situation. So those are my future projects for this rented machine, as well as anything else that arises, such as the other culverts. So I also had, while working on Putney Mountain Road, ran into Johnny Swing, who uses Bennett Road to access his father's camp, or his camp now, on Bennett Road. And he was asking the future of Bennett Road. Bennett Road is totally washed out at this point, from the flood. And it's pretty much impassable. I talked with Archie Clark
I was
about
off
it.
Bennett Road though, I went up and drove around.
You did.
Howard and I saw you and we
You
went.
went around the second hairpin turn and then took the right? That
Oh,
road?
I didn't go that one, no,
Okay.
no, I know what
You
you're
would
talking
know
about.
if you drove. You would know if you drove up Bennett Road
I
because
found that on horseback riding,
under the
no.
best of circumstances, Bennett Road is
All right,
often challenging to drive on. Yeah.
okay, no,
Yeah,
I know what you're
it's a
talking
C
about.
class 4 that it goes straight through to Holland Hill. And there's swings have a building structure on this side, and there's Dr. Wu on the other end, and then Bolsters have a camp at the far end right next to Holland Hill, but then Purple Mountain is, so it's that corner of Brookline. So that's Bennett Road, and our side of it is totally washed, really deep ruts. And John was asking, you know, how soon will we get it back? And I said, well, my priority list doesn't include Bennett Road at this point. It's gonna take a lot of repairs,
Is that a class 3 or class 4 road?
It's a 4,
Okay, that's what I thought.
yeah. I think that it turns into 3 just before the opposite end to get into Dr. Wu's. Which he's fixed up, he put money into the road to make it a class 3. So I told him that I could probably go there with an excavator and pull what gravel is there together to make a flat surface so that you could pass through. However, you really need drainage. If you funnel all the water back into the middle of the road because it's lower than the sides, you're wasting time and money by allowing the water to just dissolve. So at some point, there was an agreement on Bennett Road that John's father had years ago before I came on to the road highway department. And they had an agreement if they purchased materials and the town did the machine work to maintain it. That was the deal at that time. And I'm not sure how much material John wants to purchase, but I feel as though we don't really have the time as of yet to even consider making it upgraded at this time. So I asked John if he wanted to come to a meeting to talk about it, but you know, talking with Archie, it's gonna take quite a bit of time and quite a bit of material to bring it back. And the other thing was, we don't get any funding like for class 4 road. Just 2 and 3. One if we had any, but so I just wanted to.
Thank you, yeah, I didn't know that, yeah.
So basically, yeah, just I'm finishing up flood damage repairs and trying to accomplish the grants. Again, the grant on Putney Mountain Road is nearly complete, other than surface gravel for the road. And I talked with Archie again, and I guess Vermont still hasn't clearly
No
gotten,
emergency disaster.
yeah, nobody signed the declaration, so we're waiting on that to go further on that project. I've been working on the ditches and the culverts, but until, and the other towns, from what I gather, are doing the same, they're waiting until to make sure they're gonna have.
Otherwise
that-
our budgets
that
are gonna be really shut up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm keeping up with the grader work and the repairs on the flood issues and drains.
Anything else?
No, I think that.
All right, I'm gonna run through this we don't mind doing it, I'm gonna run through this rather quickly. Emails, I'm told you Marzowick, passing of her father and treasury information, I'll let you know when she's had time to come back to the select board. The end of Dobson's letter of resignation, there are websites we've been sharing, information, if you want to sign up for a website or webinar, please do so. As far as regular mail goes, we, companies are getting our appropriations. And so at this time, the Wyndham County Humane Society sends us a thank you for our appropriation to them. The Vermont Association for the Blind has sent us a thank you letter for their appropriation of, from us. Grace Cottage Hospital has sent us a letter of thank you to the taxpayers for the appropriation of $300 to them. Sevka has sent us a thank you letter for their receiving their appropriation of $465 from the town. And we also have some mail from the Vermont League of Cities and Towns that about the town fair, and that there's going to be an annual business meeting at September 29th at 1 p.m. So if anybody wants to see these mails, I'll put them right over here. You can certainly go through them. Next, I'm gonna do the payroll, the pay orders. Okay. All right, I'd like to make a motion. I'm looking at the Brookline, Vermont accounts payable. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the check warrant report number 2209 dated September 1st, 2021 in the amount of $24,966.81. May I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Stan. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving accounts payable warrant 2022-09 for $24,966.81 signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes, and I will pass this around for you to sign. I'd like to make a motion that we approve check warrant report 22-10 dated September 1st, 2021 for payroll. The amount is $6,483.86. May I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Stan. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving payroll warrant 2022-10 for $6,483.86 signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Hearing none, the motion passes. Let me pass this around. Okay. The next meeting will be September 15th, 2021. I will have on that meeting some time for let me see here. I have Historical Society, that's October 6th. You wanna do excavator time at the next meeting? Will you have enough time, or do you want that in October as well? We'll do both.
We could give
We'll have some
it
time.
10 minutes there
Okay.
at the next meeting and then.
Let's spend some time on the excavator. And if there's any other items, try to get my agenda out earlier so that we can look. But thank you all for your cooperation and help in getting things going tonight. All right, is there anything else? Hearing none? I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn this evening's meeting. May I have a second?
So moved.
So moved by Bruce. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passed. Meeting is over. The time is, I don't know what time is it? 9:20.